Welcome, everyone, to the second edition of the sessions. The sessions are, as most of you know, are mentoring sessions that we have with fellow All Boys as well as invited guests. We speak all things mentoring, and this evening I am very proud and we are very privileged to be hosting Ray Mkhulisi, fellow All Boy, Baines 2011. Welcome, Ray. We are looking forward to having you on board as part of our sessions on the second episode, how we promote mentoring on OM Plus, which is our Club for Life and All Boys platform. Is we use a mentoring feature, and this feature is really an algorithm which connects potential mentors or potential mentees with yourself. And so for those of you that haven't used this feature yet, please feel free. It is on OM Plus, available to you at any point in time, and it's really very, very useful in terms of promoting this concept of mentoring. So without further ado, Ray Mkhulisi, welcome.
Teddy, thank you. I appreciate the invite, and yeah, it's really good to be here. 10 years since I've left school, so it's very nice to be here. Yeah, thanks.
No, that's great. I like exactly where you've positioned yourself in the house. I'm not sure if this is typically where you do your team's calls, but the elephants and the strategic tree that you've put right next to you, I think it's a nice touch.
Yeah, I wish I could take credit for it, but it's my wife, definitely. I think the only good things about marrying the right person, and this is one of them. So yeah, quite.
No, excellent.
Can't really take credit. Thanks.
Sure. No problem. So Ray, before we get into the talk about mentoring, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Ray? And this is Ray outside of this impressive CV that I'm sure you'll get into a little bit later. But who is Ray Mkhulisi as a person? And you can touch on your background, where you grew up, what your personality is.
Yeah, thanks, Teddy. Look, I think for me, I'm first and foremost a very proud South African. I'm from KZN, from a long lineage of Zulu people. So my family is all Zulu, and I grew up in KZN. I had a stint in Gauteng with my parents. But that wasn't too long. That was about 5 or 6 years, and then got back to KZN just before. I was in grade 3, and that's when I went to Cornwallis, and subsequently my class, and then thereafter I ventured into other things, which we'll obviously touch on a little bit later. But I would say I'm definitely a proud South African, a proud Zulu man. But also a global citizen, a family man, and most importantly, a God-fearing man. I think that's one of the things I took from home, but also nurtured at my class and outside of that within my marriage with my wife. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say to sum myself up.
You know, you can tell a lot in terms of the kind of person one is whenever you ask that question. A lot of people, especially us in Gauteng and Joburg, that are constantly chasing around our professional careers, whenever we ask that question, the very first response is, I'm a CA or I'm an actuary. And, you know, I'm really, really privileged to be engaging with someone like yourself that prioritizes things way bigger than that. So very first question being, and response from you, you're a proud South African, you're a proud Zulu man, you're a proud family man, you are a proud husband, and most important of all, as you correctly pointed out, is you are a God-fearing person, which is really great to hear. So thanks for that intro. And Ray, I'd be very interested to actually get some background on your Michael career. The one thing I know is that you were in Baines 2011, which it's a bit unfortunate to be in Baines, but anyways, we don't need to touch on that too much further. But
Yeah, listen, Teddy, I
yeah,
think firstly,
Baines was that house like next to Mackenzie, like just very far away. You know?
yeah, listen, I think you need to be careful what you say, because we produced a lot of senior prefects, prior to my arrival, and also there were some definitely when I was there. And Baines is in the first class in the school right now. We've got we in the the Emirates first class lounge, whereas everyone else is some are still in economy and others are in business. So I'll be very careful as to what I say in terms of Baines. But look, I had 5 very happy years at my class. It was it's something that was definitely life defining. I think if I can maybe summarize my time there in kind of 6 treasures, treasures as in things that I got from being at my class. So I was at Cornwallis. There were obviously, Cornwallis was the official feeder school to my class, as you know. And so I arrived at my class and I knew a lot of people from my Cornwallis days. And I also knew some people that I'd played sport against. At Cornwallis, I had played first team rugby in grade 6, and I played provincial rugby. So, there were guys from other schools that I'd known and kind of caught up with, at my class. But to go to these 6 treasures, I think it's important to say, the first treasure is, I really got fine friends out of being at my class. I really made good friends. Different people from different places, with different views. And I think to sit down with all those people, some of them were, more talented than ours. But I think to sit down with them and exchange views, was a critical part of growing up as a teenage boy in an environment such as my class, which is a privileged environment. And I would like to call my class an elite school, but we're not an elitist school, if you know what I'm saying. Because I think those two things are different, So that's the first thing. I got fine friends. The second thing is I really got creative and innovative learning and teaching. What do I mean by that? I had very inspiring teachers, people that I had fantastic experiences with. I can mention a few. My housemaster, Johan van Rooyen, was a fantastic man that you would know. Bopi was a wonderful guy.
He was my Afrikaans teacher in E-Block.
Yeah. Well, there we go. So he was a fantastic housemaster. I had a fantastic relationship with him. I was a head prefect of my house in my final year, just as you were in East. And I know that history because obviously I was at school with your younger brother. And it seems you did pass on the baton really well, because he was very well behaved there, if I can say so myself. And so Johan van Rooyen, I can mention, William Silk. He was you wouldn't know him, but he's now the senior master of culture. And he took me for private music, but also choir, youth choir, chamber choir. Very inspirational man. And
were you a singer? You don't come across like you're in choir.
Yeah, I was. So that's actually a funny story. Maybe I can mention this while I'm on this treasure, the second treasure. But I did no cultural stuff at my class in E&B block. I literally arrived, made great friends, played sport, because I arrived on a sports exhibition scholarship, and did a bit of academics as well when I needed to, but one thing that I did accidentally was music and drama. So when I was in C Block, we did a production called Ipintombi, that you would know of historically. And I didn't put my name down for the audition, and Mrs. Redfern, who I was Dion Redfern, who you would know, Alan Redfern, her husband was the housemaster, the founders of Snow Boy. She saw me in the corridor one day and she said, "This is ridiculous. I didn't see your name on the audition. You speak the best Zulu in the school." So she said, "You coming to an audition? I don't care what you say." So I arrive at the audition and it includes a bit of singing, dancing, and on the adjudicating panel was her and the choir guy, and he said to me, "This is ridiculous. Why aren't you in the choir?" So he said, "Listen, next week, pull through. You're going to be in choir." It's like, okay, sure, no problem. So that's kind of how that happened. And then I was in a play, and I won the best novice in the play that year, which was really cool. Something different, something I hadn't done, and something I didn't know that I'd actually enjoy as much. But I think, as I say, the rest is history. I did KZN Midlands Youth Choir, I did Chamber Choir, and I did the National Youth Choir of South Africa. A couple of us did it in our grade 11 year or B block year. So yeah, that's what I mean, I think, by creative and innovative learning and teaching. I really was inspired by my teachers, and yeah, it was really a privilege. The third thing that I learned, or a treasure that I received from being at my class, was definitely sound values. You know, I think those values I had it from home, and my parents were fantastic. But you know, they leave you in the care of the school. So you know, some people say one of the joys of the Midlands boarding schools, is that, you know, you see your parents drop you off on a Sunday night, you go to chapel, and they see you again for Saturday sport. And, you know, you spend a lot of time there. So it's very important that, you know, those values come through. And I definitely got sound values from being in Balgaon for 5 years. And I think from the institution itself, from the teachers and staff in general, and from the rector right down. But I think also, you know, from other boys that I was there at school with. And I think older guys who showed you the ropes of what to do, how to do it, how to behave, what is expected of you. So yeah, I definitely think sound values was the third treasure I got. If I move on to the fourth treasure, definitely find traditions that I really enjoyed. Singing stars, running down the bank, you know, playing Hilton. You know, they're just many traditions. A copying and cutting system, which was fantastic. I had a fantastic cop, a guy called Joseph Rosenberg, who I still see around. Which is
I remember
really cool.
Rosenberg.
Yeah. So
he was a youngster around my time. Yeah.
He would have been a D block when you were in A block. Yeah. So really fun traditions, definitely. I think also something I got out of being at my class, obviously I didn't realize that when I was there, but it's definitely a great network. And I think we'll chat, we'll touch on that after, you know, as we go on in the interview, just start talking about the mentoring scenario. But definitely a great network. I mean, geez, an unbelievable network. I mean, I think an ROI, credit to my parents. I mean, it was like they were betting on the JSE stock, you know. They put their money in a good place. This was definitely, we were definitely Naspers. I mean, but obviously, like Naspers, you know, they bet on Tencent, and the guys from Tencent had to build the business. So your parents, you know, bet on you, and you also have to put in the work and make sure that you use the network and take the opportunities that are given to you. So that's the fifth thing. And the final thing, and I think the most important thing, is I got a faith that has enabled me to thus far meet the challenges of life. You know, life is challenging. It's not always smooth, and you do need faith, in my view. And people have different ways of faith. Some people are spiritual, some are Christians, some are Jews, some are Muslims, whatever they are. I really have got no issues with what people choose to do. But I definitely think being an Anglican school, being the Dawson College of Natal, I really got a faith that has enabled me to meet the challenges of life thus far. And that I hope and I know we'll keep doing that as life progresses. So yeah, I think those are the 6 treasures that I got. But in a nutshell, I was a big rugby player. I enjoyed that. I played at 12 schools. I was fortunate to play first team tours. And I was obviously there during the golden era. There were 3 Springboks produced there. So it was always quite nice to say you went to school with 3 Springboks. And Pat Cilliers did trade me because I was a front row forward, so I managed to interact with all of them. But yeah, it was fantastic. But I think definitely a holistic education, Teddy, if I can call it that, extremely holistic and something that I enjoyed greatly, something that I wouldn't change for the world, without a shadow of doubt. Yeah.
I must say this feels like a speech, because the way that you've summarized those 6 treasures, and if I could just name them again, it's friends, learning and teaching, sound values, fun, traditions, network, and faith across challenges of life. And if I think about the essence of what my class is really trying to teach, and it's also quite befitting that not only does it sound like speech day, but today we're also celebrating 125 years of existence, which is really 125 years of making men. And these treasures, if one thinks about it, and I think it's a good time to actually get into the crux of the subject matter this evening, which is mentoring. If one looks at all of these 6 treasures, they almost have a contribution that they play in this concept of mentoring, whether you are becoming a mentor to someone else or you become mentored by someone else. And can you just shed some light on this concept of mentorship and what your take on mentorship actually is as an idea and as a concept?
Teddy, thanks. I think firstly, when Sean told me that you're running this program, I felt that this is something that is extremely important. And my view on it is that it's actually invaluable. Mentorship is invaluable because the reality is you don't know what you don't know. If you haven't sat with a guy like Rob Hersoff, and heard Rob talk about his experiences, you don't know that. So Rob mentioned, for example, that he met with Elon Musk, and he mentioned that you had to be there at a certain time. He tells you it's 20 minutes. He's ordered the food. You chat to him. You fire away. You ask him everything you want to ask him, and then that's it. He's gone. He's out. That experience for a guy like Rob, who's extremely experienced and who's done extremely well, for argument's sake, was invaluable, as Rob put it. He said it was an invaluable experience to really sit and engage with a guy who has been extremely successful, but who has got incredible ideas in his mind, and he's created some fantastic things. So I feel mentorship is extremely important, and I'm speaking about this from something that I've lived. When I left my class, I knew one thing. I knew that I had an entrepreneurial mind, and I knew that I wanted to do something about it. And because of the education that I received at my class, and I didn't touch on the fact that in C Block, I went on exchange, and I went to America, and I think my views on the world changed. I'd grown up in South Africa, very privileged environment, but I'd grown up in a country which the events of a couple of weeks ago showed this clearly, in a country where there are more people who don't have than have. So to go and expend a term in a country that has more people that have than that don't have was an eye-opening experience, a life-changing experience, a global superpower, the most powerful nation in the world, the wealthiest nation in the world, was an incredible experience that my class afforded me, and my views on the world changed. So my entrepreneurial kind of views were really from that experience. I decided that when I leave school, this is what I kind of want to do. I want to get into business. So I took a very different path. My parents agreed that I could go to Johannesburg. I was initially going to go to Wits. I ended up not going to Wits. Ended up doing my degree part-time through UNISA, my BCom, and I ended up getting into business. But before I talk about getting into business, the mentorship aspect is what allowed me to get into business. So when I got to Johannesburg, I met a man called Clifford Elphick, a wonderful man. And yet again, I mean, I didn't know who he was, and he didn't know who I was. But the mere fact that I went to my class, he said, "Oh, you're my class boy," you know, and he opened up and he said, "Hey, what do you want to do? And what are you up to?" And
where did you meet him, by the way? I mean, a lot of people obviously know him or know of him. How did you actually meet him?
So Cliffy, so I have a family friend, and my mother and his mother are good friends. He went to Hilton, and he was at school with Cliffy's son, and he happened to be in Johannesburg staying at the Elphick's house, and he said to me, "Hey, listen, can I see you?" I needed to give him some tickets. And so he gave me the address where he was, and there he was. He was at the Elphick's, and I gave him the tickets, and there Cliffy was, and there Cliffy's son was, and you know, he said hello, and he asked me who I was, asked me what I did, and I said, "Yeah, dabbling in a few things there and there." And he said, "Listen, give me a call on Monday morning, and you know, let's have a chat." And he's like, "Do you have a card?" I said, "Yeah, I do." I gave him my card. And before I could call the guy on Monday morning, you know, his PA had already sent me an email saying, "Clifford wants to see you on Wednesday," I think it was. So I said, "Yeah, sure. What time?" I arrived there, and you know, they say the rest is history. But I became, you know, the personal assistant to Clifford Elphick. Obviously, his history is he was the personal assistant to Harry Oppenheimer. He was the CEO of E. Oppenheimer and Son, which controlled De Beers and Anglo. In the latter half of the 20th century, and obviously the first bit of the 21st century. And after the death of Mr. Oppenheimer, he wound up the estate, and he sold a share out of the business, and he moved on into his other interests. But when I met him, I was exposed to his family office, which is a global structure, different interests, you know, in different places. And I was exposed to his primary business, which is a diamond mining business listed in London on the LSE. And he's got another business where he's the chairman called Zanaga Iron Ore. It's an iron ore business in Congo, Brazzaville. And essentially, I was exposed to all of those things. And it taught me a lot about structuring. It taught me a lot about, you know, different industries, family offices, you know, how these complicated things really work, and things that I definitely wouldn't have known so early in my life.
And you were studying at the time, so you were doing it part-time.
I was studying my degree part-time, but I was working full-time. So weekends I had time to do a few books, and I did a master's through Liverpool. After that, I'm doing another one now through Cambridge. So it's something that I've always kind of managed to balance out. But I spent 10 very happy years in Johannesburg. I was Clifford's PA. As I said, he was preparing me to become a businessman. And the first opportunity we got together was we got into a coal trading business, and we were supplying coal to Sasol in Secunda. Funnily enough, an honorary OM was the guy who was actually supplying us with the coal. So there's another link to my class there as well. And it's funny, he was also the benefactor of the scholarship that I got to my class. So it's quite a circumstance of events. And that's why I say, it was a great network. But, it's only as great as how well you use it. So I think it's very important to mention these things. But we were successful in our coal trading business. We did quite well. The Henri OM, who funded the scholarship, says it was a decent return on investment. Definitely the best he's ever had. He never thought that endowing the scholarship would lead to those kinds of returns. And Clifford as well. We had a great partnership, and I used my proceeds to set up my family office / investment holding company. I've got a couple of interests in there, and currently I've got day-to-day roles in textile business called Nyati Health Products, and I'm the CEO of a financial services business called Tawa Ukaso, which is it's got a couple of proprietary investments and is based in Durban. So I definitely think without the mentorship, there's absolutely no way. I don't care how clever I think I am, but there's absolutely no way that all of this could have happened in a relatively short space of time, where you are with people who know a lot more, who've done it, who've been around for so much longer. You just can't buy the time and hours that they've spent and that they've had the good fortune of, because they were born much earlier, to learn business, grow businesses, buy businesses, build businesses. Mentorship has really been the key of all of that. So, yeah.
So, you mentioned something quite interesting, that when you left Michael House, you were certain that you wanted to become an entrepreneur. You had plans on going to WITS. You ended up going to UNISA to do your BCom, and you worked full-time, stumbled across this amazing opportunity with Cliff, and worked part-time. My brother, not too long ago, actually spoke about you when I asked about this Ray chap, because the very first time I heard about you was actually on the WhatsApp group when you were congratulated for becoming a member of the board. And I expected this, old chap, maybe from class of 1988 or 92, until I found out my brother was like, no, this guy is from 2011. He was there when I was there. And there was something particular about Ray. He said that Ray was always that guy that spoke to parents from a very young age. And so I want to challenge you back to say, your vision actually started when you were still at Michael House. And I guess I want to ask you the question as in, what was it that encouraged you and that really led you to be that guy that was always inspired and speaking to people outside of, fellow boys at the time, whilst you were still at school, and after rugby games when everyone else was chasing St. Anne's girls or Wickham but you were that guy that was speaking to parents, So tell me about that experience a bit.
Look, Teddy, I think people are made differently. I think firstly, God makes people in His image, and I think there's a combination of things. I think definitely first, I was made the way I was made, and you were made the way you were made, and someone else was made the same that way that they were made. But at the end of the day, you're a godly creation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I went to boarding school at 8 years old. And so I think as much as, I was a Kurolis, I could go home every weekend, but I learned to be independent really young. I was in a fantastic environment. I had all the tools to do things and learn things. And if I wanted to go home on weekends, I could, but I'd be like, nah, I just want to stay with my mates and do things and play sport. And I definitely think, learning to be independent from a young age has definitely contributed. to the way that I turned out. And I think also another thing is, as I said, I think going to the US was definitely a good thing. At the end of C Block, a time where you kind of just past the midpoint of your my class career, so it's quite a good time to be there. But I think also it's these values that I talk about, these values that I mentioned, that what are my treasures, that I received at home, but I also received at school. I've always been a person who shows a great amount of respect for people who are older than me. Yes, people that are my age. I was always just that kind of guy. It's just the way I am. I was raised that way, and I believe that's how you should conduct yourself. But I think obviously towards adults, it's important. And obviously those people were adults at the time. I was a child, so I might have just come across in a very mature way because of the flavors that I've just mentioned to you, and they could relate and they were impressed. And I think if you're a good influence on someone's child, they like you, and there are all sorts of things like that. And I mean, there were a lot of people that I didn't know what they really did. I mean, they had to have done something right. I mean, to pay the kind of fees, at a school like that, you've got to be doing something right. But I mean, I didn't really know, what was happening. I just kind of behaved in a certain way because that's who I was. And it's only, as I said, once I left school that I realized, this kind of big network that I had, and I was like, I really have to make use of it, and I did. Now, and that's why I think something like OM Plus is so important, because it allows you to in a very structured way, have find mentors, learn things, meet people that can direct you in the right kind of way for what you as an individual need, because we're all different, right? So yeah, but I mean, he isn't wrong. I definitely was like that. I mean, I was saying to you earlier that when I was in A Block, your mother came up to me and asked if I was who I was, and I said yes, this is who I am, and she knows my mother, and I said okay, thank you, ma'am, that's fantastic, and your brother was there. And I actually need to phone her because I'll never forget, she actually came to me and I haven't spoken to her since. So I definitely do need to reach out to her and say, hey, Doc, this is who I am. Sorry, I couldn't really give you a straight answer at the time because I didn't really know you. But my mom was like, yeah, man, we're friends and we know each other. So yeah, but I was always that kind of guy. And I think those values really came through from home, but also at school as well.
I think those are the aspects of your character that have really led you to be where you are in terms of your success. And you talk about having been mentored by Cliffy as a mentee,
yes,
if one could call it that. And at what point, definitely, if it hasn't already, has there been a change in God in terms of paying it forward? So the last time we had a session with Rob Herself, he spoke about putting the elevator down. And is this something that you have actually done yet, or you are in the process of thinking about it?
So I mentored a boy who was at St. John's College. He matriculated last year. He's just started first year varsity. And I mentored him from 13 years old. So just before he arrived at St. John's, he was a recipient of a centenary scholarship at St. John's. So it's 110% scholarship for talented underprivileged boys. And he was one of those boys. And I mentored him throughout the 5 years. I was very delighted to be at the St. John's Speech Day last year. Not only because I could reminisce on my victories on Burger, their main rugby field, because I never lost a game there, but also because he had. They definitely were a lovely weekend away in Johannesburg. I always used to tell the boys, shame. Being at St. John's was like a free weekend in Joburg, see some mates, go out to some parties, and then go back to the Midlands. but also because it was amazing to be at Speech Day and to see, just what he had achieved. And he doesn't come from a smooth background, but he really took the opportunity and he's really positioned himself well for the next chapter of his life. So I definitely did that, which was fantastic, and him and I are still in touch. It was also kind of a chance thing, but as Rob said, I think these things always are. They're never like planned. You kind of just really click with someone, and it just goes from there. Another thing that my wife and I do. So I'm a benefactor at my class, part of the Chairman's Club, and also at Montgomery Bell. I give them. I'm a benefactor there as well. So I wasn't happy about the gender inequality in terms of giving or focus at the school. So my wife and I actually mentor a young girl who goes to Dunmore College. We actually sponsor her fees there as well. And for sensitivity purposes, I won't mention who she is. But yeah, that's something that we are doing, and I'm always just looking for younger guys to share my experiences with, and how they can kind of utilize the advantage that they have, which is time as a young person, to make the right calls and to really push and get ahead in whatever young people want to do. And I think that's what mentorship does. It allows you to firstly just be positioned, and to set yourself up and in motion to where you want to go. And that's definitely what it did for me. I'm definitely at kind of early stages of my career, but I would say I'm quite happy with the way things are going. And without mentorship, I can tell you, as I said, it would never be this way, without a shadow of doubt. So yeah.
Sean actually posted a question which is quite similar to what you've just answered. So you've answered half of it, but I may as well just ask it again. So he asked if you are too young to become a mentor to someone else, and you've partially answered it by actually having mentored someone. And if my math serves me correctly, you're probably 27, and you've already mentored
28.
someone through their 28. So you've already mentored someone through their 5 years of St. John's, who matriculated last year and is in the first year varsity. So you are actually mentoring someone at 22. And can you be too young to mentor? Is Sean's question. Are you too young to be a mentor?
No, I don't think so. I think you might be too young to obviously mentor someone older than you, who's seen. When I mean older, I mean not someone who's a year or 2 or 3 or 4 older than you. Someone can come to me who was, for example, in A block when I was in D block, and ask me about business advice because they know that I might have more business experience than they do. That's fine. But I don't think mentoring someone who is much older than you it would be the ideal thing. So what I've found, let me give you an example. So what I've found is I personally am happy to mentor younger guys because I've been through probably most of the stuff that they're still going to go through, right? So I'm happy to do that. So mentoring a boy who's in high school, that's something I've done, and I can tell the guy, this is kind of how you should go about being, 13, 14 until 18, right? So that's something I've done. I've also not mentored, but I've also given guys business advice based on my experiences as a young businessman. And guys who are typically starting businesses or wanting to get into businesses, those are guys that I'm happy to give advice to. But when it comes to mentoring much older guys, so in my 2 day-to-day businesses, or my 2 day jobs, if I can call it that, I have I have a business partner who is 60 years old in the textiles business, and I have a business partner in my financial services business who is in his early 50s. Now, I learn a lot from them, and I continue to get mentored about life, but also about our businesses. But they also feel that there's certain things that as a young person they can learn from me because of just the drastic changes that we experience in the world that we live in today, combined with a little bit of experience. So to answer your question, yes and no. It depends on what it is, and obviously there's a difference between personal mentorship, business mentorship, and just giving advice to guys who are maybe trying to get going, who are trying to scale businesses, etc.
So I think James Rogers, who posted a comment and a partial response to the question asked earlier, actually shares the same sentiment, that he doesn't personally think that you can be too young. He's certainly had experiences where some mentors that he's had are fairly close in age. And I want to actually get into the aspect on the actual relationship in itself between a mentor and a mentee. And the question that Ngisana's posted around, what are the essential habits that a mentee needs to have in order to actually ensure that the relationship that you have becomes fruitful for the mentee, and I guess for the mentor as well?
I definitely think thanks, Ngisana. I think that's actually a really good idea. By the way, before I answer Ngisana's question, I said to Ngisana, he's actually contributed partially to where I am today, because when I was in A Block, I did some work experience at Bowman's, and he was an attorney there at the time, and I did a day of work experience with the senior partner of their property department that Ngisana knows. And he said to me, hey, listen, there's a my class old boy. He's one of our, I think he was an associate at the time, or senior associate. And, why don't let's have lunch with him today? So I said, yeah, sure, Rog, no problem. Let's do it. And so Ngisana and I had lunch and chatted. And he said to me, do you really want to be a lawyer? And I said, not really. And he said, don't be a lawyer. so he was the second person that said to me, don't be a lawyer if you really don't want to be a lawyer. And he said, find something that you really want to do. So Ngisana, thank you very much. I always need to acknowledge you for this, because you definitely played a part in where I've landed up. But look, there's nothing wrong with lawyers. I'm married to a lawyer, so
I'm also married to a lawyer, by the way.
So I don't have anything against lawyers. So.
my lawyer was Ngisana's colleague. She was also at Bowman's, 2 years younger, I think, or 3 years younger. So you could have been working there at the same time as her. So I'm married to a lawyer. I don't have a choice, but I also happen to be Ngisana's colleague.
So
these lawyers are just all over.
So I think so just to go back to Ngisana's question, it's very important to be focused on what you want to gain out of the mentor, because the mentor will love mentoring you if you are focused, and because that gives joy to a mentor. I mean, a guy like Cliffy, he always said to me, he got joy out of it, and he still does, because we chat all the time, and he sits as on the board of my family office. So I do think that it's important to be focused. It's important to be engaging. These people are very busy people. I was quite fortunate that we sat in the same office for all my years in Johannesburg, which was just under 10 years, or maybe a little bit less, but I was fortunate. So I had access to this guy, but he would travel to London, and then you've got a plate, and then so you had to be really focused on what you wanted, right? And I think it's important to be that way, because you need to ask a lot of questions. I wasn't there when he was with Harry Oppenheimer and Madiba, and there was 3 of them sitting. He was the one who was there. And if I don't ask him those questions, he can't relay those experiences with me. Or things about, how was it being a PA, and what did you learn about business, and this and that. And I think these things kind of happen as you go along. But yeah, I think it's very important to be focused, and it's very important to be engaging, and I think it's also very important to kind of create a personal relationship as well. For me, that was important. I mean, I would go to play with Alfix all the time. I mean, his children are we very close. They all call me Cousin Ray. So it's very important. When I married my wife, his wife she would pull me aside and she said, "I really like this girl. Be focused." And what I mean. So it's very important. I think from that perspective. Yeah.
I actually share the same sentiment, because I was also a PA. I was a PA to a guy called David Monroe, who a lot of successful executives in the country know.
For
David Monroe.
Who's that? Yeah. David Monroe.
Yeah, he used to be
Liberty CEO.
Liberty CEO. Before that, he was at Standard Bank as the head of CIB. So I started with him in CIB for a very short period of time, and then I moved across to Liberty with him. And those 2 years were exactly about those elements: focus, inquisitive, and personal relationship. And I remember just before I left his office, he said, "Teddy, if there's one thing that you need to remember and that you will learn from me that you can take away, is focus. Focus on the job at hand. Focus on what you need to deliver. Don't be distracted, and you will succeed." So that aspect of focus, I can certainly share that essential by all means. And then he also came to my wedding. And so there was also that element of personal relationship. And I really, really appreciated that. And so I can definitely relate to certainly 2 of those 3 things. Sean asked another question. And he asked if the prospect of mentoring or being mentored by a fellow old boy, does that excite you at all? I mean, I know Cliffy you say was a Hiltonian, right?
No. He always refused that. He was a St. John's boy. He always says to me, the 2 most beautiful schools in South Africa are my class and St. John's. So the Hilton Oaks don't quite, it's the Herbert Baker look, that sticks around for him.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely. I mean, I think for me, it's a yes, because you've had a very similar experience in your formative years. To have a personal relationship with a fellow old boy and to be mentored by them, things are a lot easier because you've got a common ground that connects you. You belong to an exclusive club, which it's either you're there or you're not. It's not like, it's not like Augusta National and you can go buy the membership. And no, it's either you did it or you didn't do it. It's as simple as that. So I think for me, it really excites me. There's a common ground. And I think it also, particularly as a young old boy, it makes you, so for example, if I was mentored by a guy like Rob Hersoff, Rob's done great things. He went to my class, I went to my class. I'm like, I can also do great things. We have the same, kind of grounding, if I can call it that. We've taken different parts, yes, but we have a similar start point, which can make a young person believe that they can actually get to that level. And there are old boys like that across the world who've done exceptionally well. And if I can use OM Plus, for example, I mean, if I went to Los Angeles, I would write to Peter Torrington Smith and say, hey, Peter, this is who I am. I'm in LA. My wife and I are here for 2 weeks. Can I see you for coffee? Because he went to my class. He happened to also be in Baines. So I think you must retract your statement on Baines Oaks. And and he built an extremely successful business, not once but twice. But he's very close to my class. He won the Sir Michael Award. But what I'm trying to say is he had the same grounding. And there's nothing that can stop you as a young old boy to do the same. With the right mentorship, doing what you should be doing, with the skills that you do have, with the back support that you do have from your family, to friends, to opportunities, to OM Plus, it's really doable, because someone else who's in a similar position to you is just much older and got more experience and has done more things and met fantastic people that have allowed him to get to where he is. But it is doable. So yes, I'm very excited by that prospect.
I have a confession actually, and this was facilitated by the face of OM Plus, our very own Sean Lamley. He introduced me to Will Green, and I think Will Green was in his year. Yep, 94. Now Will and I have so much in common. I didn't know him 2 weeks ago, but I had a call with him today about a couple of business opportunities. Last week, similar business opportunities, both in my personal business as well as my day-to-day. And I've just organically developed such a close relationship with him. He happened to be in East, so not quite Baines, but East. And I don't know if that's first class or economy now, I'm not sure. But certainly when I was in East, it was first class. But he was head of East.
On business class, but you'll get there someday. It's okay. When I've
done
the upgrade.
Okay. So he was head of East in 94. I was head of East in 2004. He was cacking for the head of East. When he was a cack, I was cacking for the head of East, Brett Green, when I was a cack. And he's in tech and I'm in tech. So it's almost like an organic match made in heaven. But just to relate to your comment around common ground, and he's becoming a mentor of mine actually naturally. It's so important, and it's so much easier when you do have that common ground, because that common ground is really based on trust. And as all boys of Michael House and really being privileged members of that community, I think trust is one of the most important aspects of life, really, in terms of nurturing and growing a relationship between two human beings. And so I completely relate to what you've said. Ray, we've got 5 minutes left. And today is 125 years of celebrating growing men. Who was the rector of Michael House in 1901?
Canon Todd.
Was it?
Canon Todd, the founder, definitely. Yeah, he was still around. He was definitely there for the. I'm talking like I was there. Imagine. He was definitely around for the move from Loop Street in Maritzburg to Balgard. I'm sure about that.
Okay. I'll ask you one more question. Who was the rector in 2002?
Guy Pearson.
Okay, that was his first year, actually.
He was. Yeah. He started in 2002. Yeah. A great man, great rector. He really was fantastic rector for my 5 years there. And
he was your rector there. Okay.
Yeah. He was there for the full 5 years. And I think he left at the end of our first year out.
Yeah.
Went to Bishops, as you know. Yeah. Bishops.
So just last couple of questions on my side. So what advice would you give anyone looking for mentors. And it doesn't have to be people that are necessarily younger than you, but even older
Yeah,
than you. People that are still
yeah.
figuring out this whole mentorship thing. And then linked to it, if you had to go back, would you do anything differently in your mentorship journey with Cliffy?
So to answer the first question, I think I definitely think that when you embark on that kind of a relationship, it must be as natural as possible, but with as much intent as possible. In other words, I think if you meet someone and you get along with them and they like you, you'll kind of figure out quite quickly if this is the kind of person who could,
Yeah.
you know, give you honest day-to-day advice on where you are and how you can get to the next level. And that's what I'm saying by natural. But once
Mm.
you're there, it can no longer be natural. It has to be
Yeah.
deliberate, direct, focused. You're like in the door, and now you really have to do something. I mean, it's really like going into the gym and seeing all this like equipment, and then no longer lifting weights or running on the treadmill. I mean, it's like quite ridiculous. Once you're there, you then have to be deliberate. Before you're there,
Mhm.
you will know naturally who who you who you get on with, and if they get on with you, and and it will naturally just be there. But I think it's an important thing for young, especially young old boys, all old boys, but young old boys, to find that as soon as possible, so that they don't go down a path that
Mm.
they shouldn't really go down. As I said, everyone is different. We can't all
Mm.
do the same things. But if you have the right mentor who you click with professionally, personally, um, you should be on the right path, or near there, not completely out there. And this leads me to my next answer, which is I wouldn't do anything different. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think the journey has been uncomfortable. There's been a lot of sacrifices, but
Mm.
as I'm heading to 30, I would not say I don't have any regrets on the way that I did things. I think going to Johannesburg was a great thing. I was fortunate to meet great people there. I was fortunate to meet a fantastic mentor who changed my life professionally. Um, and not to say that it started. I mean, I was very young, um, and and I think doing things in parallel, so studying part time and working, you kind of got the theory from studying, and the working gave you the practical part of it. So you kind of did everything at the same time, which was quite good. But it's not for everyone. I wouldn't say that's the model that everyone should do. Some people do need to go to UCT or Stellenbosch or Tuks or Wits or go to Edinburgh, or go to school in the United States. They just need to do that. But what worked for me is what worked for me, and as a result, I think this Oxbridge dream of mine has come true. But it's something that I've been able to do because I've always had the dream. But Cliffy, my mentor, pushed me hard on it. He said, "Listen, you've got to go to Oxbridge. Like you've set yourself
Yeah.
up well. Like it's just something you have to do. Like you have to do
Mm.
it." And he said, "I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I left UCT. I studied my honors through UNISA. My first degree, my parents paid for. My second degree, they didn't pay for. I went to Anglo, and then I was seconded to E. Oppenheimer and Son, and I just got on with it. I couldn't really do these things, but he really encouraged it. So yeah, I think I wouldn't do anything differently, but what I would encourage guys is to do what works for you, but be
Mm.
focused on what you want, because you're at school for 5 years, you make great friends, and I made great friends, and some of them are my friends today. But we're all running our own journey, and you have to make decisions based on you and what works for you.
Excellent, Ray. I think as we are on the hour, we'll certainly leave it at that very high note. But one thing that I'll certainly not forget, and the key takeout from this conversation that we've just had, outside of focus and really building a personal relationship with that mentor. In fact, I think you mentioned focus about 28 times just in the last 5 minutes alone. So certainly focus is something that we'll take out. But the 6 treasures that you mentioned about Michael House, which really take you beyond Michael House and really into your life. Friends, learning, teaching, sound values, fun, tradition, network, and ultimately faith, regardless of the path that you do choose. But having the faith to face challenges in life, I think, is certainly something that is well noted and something that will carry into the future. So Ray, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a great honor. It's been a great privilege. It's been a great pleasure. And we certainly hope to see you in the OM Plus community. I know that you're an active member of the Michael House community at large, being a current board of governor, as well as being involved in many other aspects of the Michael House community. So thank you for your continued support. I trust that you'll have a lot of engagements with the broader community younger than you, broader community older than you. And we look forward to taking on the challenge that Sean has posted in terms of also mentoring a fellow old boy, if you haven't mentored one already. I know you started with St. John's, which is a bit bleak. Maybe that's Chippy's influence.
I had to start light, but I can definitely go onto the red and white now, definitely, without a shadow.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And thanks for everyone that joined this evening. For those of you that weren't able to join, this session is recorded, and so we'll certainly share the link after. And lastly, happy 125 years to all Michael House old boys, current boys, teachers, old teachers, as well as anyone that is connected to the Michael House community. It's been a great experience. It's been a great privilege to be part of the school. And we certainly look forward to another 125 years. I don't think we'll be around then, but we look forward to our generations that will follow that will be around. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, Teddy.
Thanks,
Appreciate it. Cheers, guys.